Alright, it's Dan from Meridian Fence, and what we did today is we took a 6-foot section of fence and the customer wanted a gate installed to it. And she wanted it to swing in so she could get her trash cans in the back. So that's exactly what we did. With the sight unseen, reused most all her material from what she had there on site. The only thing we had to bring was hardware and gate sides. And now she's got a nice gate so she can get her trash cans in and out. Everything apart. From previous installation, so now it looks like a regular post. And we just slap our cat back on, and that one's basically set up in line. And since we have a rail coming in here and a rail coming in this side, if you want to see that, you're more than welcome to redo your L shape. So our new piece will go this way to the hinge, right in there. That is about where we want to be, no less than that, because you're going to support a gate. And that is hitting concrete down below. So we're really close on our limit. That's why with sight unseen, you never know. So now that I know I'm 80 inches on that, we're not going to be 80. This is 96 inches, so we're going to trim it down a little bit. So 80 inches roughly. Get our marks in and get our sawzall out. This will give us our hinge support. And that will follow up with half pad concrete on that when we're done. So, quick and easy. So now the metal is supporting all the way across on both sides. Quick and easy like that. We usually measure prior to. This was sight unseen, so I'm going to give myself the ground clearance on the bottom of about 2 inches, which I have a special tool just for that. So these will be our gate heights. One on each side. Plenty of room to work with, so after I get done, we'll custom route our sides, and then these will set our height. This way we're equal all the way across. This way it sets my height 100%. Flip it upside down, then we know exactly where our mark is. Oops. Which is about that 68. Perfect. So we'll get our cut in, and then we'll custom route it. This way we're all the same. We're going to route it to fit the post, or the rails in there, which is 5.5. Approximately 5.5. 5.5 there, 5.5 there. Again. And we pull out a multi-tool. One of my favorites. We'll go straight across the top with this multi-tool, then we'll just trim our sides in. And the same thing on the other side. We're just going to cut the lines. Don't force it, because if you force it, it'll run out of track with you. You can feel where the edges are on that, and it just kind of stays in the line. We already have the top marked, so we know we're not doing that side. Just easier to get a little support. Run these all the way up. We leave ourselves just a little slop on the end. About right there. We won't need this chop saw again. All that for one cut. But when we come back up here, we've now got our height. Pretty close for both sides. So basically cleaned out the bottom, got our length back up, so we're at least going to be about that high. So we're flush on top this side, flush on top that side. Now we're going to do our measurements and set our rails up. We keep a gap on both sides for adjustments. So once we put our hinges in and our latch in, it'll be the last part we put is the actual striker for it. So we're going to go with the distance on this is 72. So we're going to make our gate about 69 inches wide. That'll give us room for an inch on this side and a little bit of room on that side, 1.5 inches. So we're going to cut our rails first, and we're going to leave the locking tabs on because that's a factory end, and it'll give you a nice spot where it holds it in place for you while you're trying to put your pickets in. All right, 69. So the whole width of that is 72. So just for an example, you're going this way. So 69. So that's the length of the opening. That is your right side gap, and that's your left side gap. This we have a 1 inch on both sides, kind of like that gate right there where there's 1 inch, 1 inch. And then I've got a 1 inch play in here because it looks like it's got some slope. And if there's some slope, I like to have 1 more inch in there to rack it up and down if it's got to move one way or the other. And it's pretty simple. Works pretty good on the mathing on that. And then we have our mark. You can speed square it if you want, or you can just make sure that your saw is lined up on your mark. Remember to stand to the side just in case it was, because this one would slide forward if this was loose. You could kick. Make sure you're standing to the side. Don't use the blade right in front of yourself. We start putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. So because I need the working space, we're going to use it right there. Any spot will work as long as we clean it. We're going to set it up here. And there's our locking tabs. Locking tab on this side. Next step, because we know we have locking tabs, everything's in place. The gate is shorter than it originally was. The height is going to be shorter. Measure inside to inside. We're going inside to inside, that's 58 inches. And every one of our pickets will be cut to 58. For an example. Right there would be our first one. And this will be our sample piece to make sure we're the right height. That's the only thing I'm doing right now. Perfect on height. We're tucked in top and bottom. And when we're in there together and it's 90, both sides will be touching top and bottom. If it were to have a rake on it, you would probably have to trim it. Raking is a little more difficult, and then when you rake it, depending on which way you're raking, take a little bit from halfway down to a certain inch. Start with an inch and then move it more down as you go. But we know we got the right height on these. They're going to be perfect. So now let's mount this U-channel back up in here. And the U-channel is going to have to get trimmed too. It's going to be slightly too long. So again, chop saw again. Don't force it, because if you force the U-channel, you'll chip it. And it'll chip away little chunks out of it. Not a lot of fun. Perfect, isn't it? Perfection there. I like it. Now, we're going to grab a couple screws and secure it in place. Minimum of 3. Factory specs say from the top, just drop it in about 3 inches. Same thing on the bottom. I usually go about 3 inches. Keeps anything from warping and twisting. And I put one in the middle. So we're lined up nice. Everything's centered. I start flat side down, and any rips I have come at the very end. So once it's there and there, we just keep going. And now we'll build it all the way to the top. When I do that, I usually use my table saw. But we're going to verify the size real quick. So now, these ones don't have the locking tab, which is nice because when you put this on, you can line it up and see what it looks like. So that's my gapping right there. Once into the sides of my gapping, tape measure is right here. This is your new best friend all of a sudden. And you're gonna measure up to, not this edge, but the bottom edge on that lip. Because you want a little bit of room in there for expansion and contraction. So this one's 2 1/4. If you went to the lip, you'd be 2 1/2, and it'd be a really tight squeeze. Wouldn't give you any room for expansion. So, chop saw's done. We'll rip that piece down here in just a minute. Straighten out tools, because this one's not going to get used again. And make sure when you're cutting it, you have channel side, groove side. Don't cut it the wrong way. As you can see up here, it's got the groove sticking out. That's this side. So you're trimming off this piece. We already have one with the trimmed off piece that looks like that. So we're just going to use the same piece. No point in wasting any materials. Since I did the top there, then we do the bottom here. And then we do the top down here. Now it's ready for rack. So that'll allow it to play if you gotta move it up and down. So you can shift it so it's, instead of being 90, you got different angles you can go to at that point. So we've got that, so when I pick it up here in about 5 minutes, we won't have to fight it. And now, that's the fun part. I like to set up my gate hinges basically above the rail, in between the 2 rails. Below the top rail and below the bottom rail. And since this, you know, we're going to be 2 inches higher, I just go a little higher on it. Our hinges come with screws, so we don't have to fight it. They're there. When I'm first going to put these in, because of that metal sleeve in there that I'm trying to pull in and suck in tight, it will look kind of funky at first. And since I know the top's going to be there, my other rail's going to line up pretty close to the gate itself, because we built it for the top to be here and our rails to line up 2 inches down. So I go below. And we just punch all the screws in. Not a biggie. And then I've got 2 more screws on the other side that I got to get to. And then there's just the screw holes in. 1, 2, 3, 4. So again, I'm going to roll these out just a little ways. So I'm kind of flush mount against the screws. And then I like to give it a little cinch down. Still leaves it with some room to wiggle. I just want it just tight so it doesn't bounce around while I'm putting my gate up. Oh. I got the prongs right there, just kind of tightened up. Last part's that latch. And we're lining it up nice on the top. And now we're sitting pretty good on it. Simple enough. Now we self-tap them all the way through. On the hinge side, then we'll pop it open, line it up, and get our hinges, our latch going. And then that's the gate. The simplicity of it on this one. Not all of them are this easy. Sometimes you have a J insert that goes inside here, a trim board that goes across there, but this one did not have that today. And we're lined up really nice, and we're pretty flush there. So, this is where put it in, so it's in alignment, pop your screws in. Now we're going to fill in our holes before. Obviously we're not going to do too much on it. This will keep the pickets from shifting. One on the top, one on the bottom. This way. They're all filled in and it looks nice. Try to keep them in sync so they're in line. I try to keep them so they're about an inch in. So if you ever have to adjust the gate or replace a picket or make it wider or narrower, there's extra room and it's not just going to expose holes on the rail itself. So if she decided she wanted to shrink this down later, I don't have to worry about leaving holes open. They'll be enclosed. So, from what I can tell, I'm going to put my gate brace on. Shouldn't really move too much. Right like that. So, high side there. All the way. That's what we like. We're pretty close on height. Let's take a peek from the rear and see what it looks like. It's down from Meridian Fence, and what we did today is we took a 6-foot section of fence, and the customer wanted a gate installed to it. And she wanted it to swing in so she could get her trash cans in the back. So that's exactly what we did. With the sight unseen, we used all her material from what she had there on site. The only thing we had to bring was hardware and gate sides. And now she's got a nice gate so she can get her trash cans in and out.